Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Rogue Wave podcast. We are the frequency for all things pop culture and the disruptors behind it, talking comics, movies, TV, and pop culture every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. Tonight, happy April Fool's Day. All your summer movies are gone. Huh? That's not a joke? Ugh. Plus, the bracket hath advanceth our March movie madness DC films. We welcome Fabian Nicieza of Batman and Deadpool fame to advance the next set of movies from the Elite Eight to the Final Four and how the publishers are dealing with the diamond closure. I am your host, Michael Dolce, as always brought to you alongside my co-host extraordinaire, Mr. Hassan Godwin, Lord of the live stream. How are you doing, sir?
Everything's great. Quarantine life, it's the life.
Day 78, right? It feels like that, right?
Yeah. Feels like week 10.
I've been telling people, because I work from home, my daily life hasn't actually changed. However, the weekends used to be like my break. It just feels like it's just on and on and on. It's the same thing day in and day out. Now there is no
there's no break in it.
Yeah.
There's no break in the break.
This is like what happens when you are like Ant-Man 2, he was in prison at home. That's what it feels like. Ant-Man 2.
Oh boy! Don't go on a tirade.
Better than Ant-Man 1. All right. No, not better than Ant-Man 1. Ant-Man 1
no,
better.
I like them both. I don't want to get into this discussion with you about Ant-Man because you. I remember you have points of view that I do not agree with.
You know what? I'm just in a heavy versus mode, and when we come back after next segment,
everything is binary. Everything is binary on the internet machine.
We are literally doing a March Madness bracket with DC films. But we start with our opening credits. Some corporate cost cutting. This is interesting. So we'll get into the delays in a second, but I wanted to kind of mention Disney execs and Cinemark execs and all these execs now are actually taking half their salary as a result of this coronavirus chaos. So kind of interesting how this is working versus like in the 2009 economic collapse when all the executives were like, no one has jobs, bonuses for us. Kind of an interesting little turn of events with that. But I know the news that everyone wants to talk about are the delays. Wonder Woman 1984 pushed back to late summer amid coronavirus panic. This actually broke the day after our show last week. Warner Brothers is pushing it back to August 14, which is in contrast to Sony, who basically has rearranged his entire upcoming slate, including Morbius and the new Ghostbusters movie, where they're going to be out in March and April of next year. It's fascinating to me to see what's happening in terms of how people are delaying it. So, do you think 1984 is going to be able to hit in August like they think? I mean, what's your best guess on that?
No.
So you think this is like a failed attempt to just kind of salvage it?
Whatever this is probably going to last a full year. So, we might be lucky if we get things in September, October, or, get some December movie releases and stuff like that. But August seems very early, in the grand scheme.
Well,
because, we're a month away from May, June, July, August. It's really close.
Well, you and I were talking about this kind of off air too. I mean, it's like, I was supposed to go to a concert on Monday night. It's a good thing they postponed it because, obviously couldn't do it then. But then in 3 months from now, will you feel safe going out? I know all the pro sports teams are saying they're going to bring the season back, no fans. So, how does that reconcile with theaters? How are theaters going to be able to do that? And is August, as much as August feels like it's,
I think this time around we're going to have a lot of breakthroughs in current streaming. I think the medium is poised to be exploited for an upgrade in commercial streaming.
Yeah,
I think we are all prepared for it. I think they just need to pull the trigger, and I think the more and more this starts to hurt the bottom lines of major studios,
yeah,
the looser and looser the parameters are going to be for them to release brand new things. Also, The Invisible Man had like a financial resurgence on streaming. You know, after they released it in the theaters and then they released it on streaming, and it actually, you know, that and onward, they had you know, they were kind of windfalls.
Yeah.
So I mean, look, you might not eke out $1 billion
No.
model, but you know, it is a substantial way for a company to be continuing to make, you know, to make money, to continue their revenue stream in the midst of this, you know, what is obviously going to be a severe financial crisis that we're walking into.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because we'll talk about this when we spin the racks in segment 3 with the comic book stores, but the digital medium itself. I mean, you have Steven Spielberg on one end last year who's arguing that if it's, you know, if a movie goes straight to streaming, that it shouldn't be considered for an Oscar. Well, now you have movies that all they can do is go straight to streaming. Rumors that I was hearing is Black Widow might not be released in theaters at all. It might just be a streaming release, just because, you know, Marvel needs it more than DC. DC can push Wonder Woman to August, and then if that fails, push it to October, assuming it, you know, obviously their own scheduling works out, without really hampering their bigger picture, because there is no bigger picture with DC. It's basically a handful of smaller movies that kind of exist within itself, and the Batman is, I guess, the next one up. So that's been postponed already. The production's been postponed. So it's not as if, you know, DC, the entire like DC movie plan hinges on these things coming out, you know, any specific time. Marvel absolutely does. We talked about this episode 1 though, when of our show, which is I guess 2 weeks ago, where, you know, if Black Widow doesn't debut at a certain time, how does that impact the future of the Marvel universe? And we assume that it just didn't, but now if we're hearing rumors that it's, you know, that it's going to be released VOD, then obviously there is a story element to it that is going to be, you know, that needs to be included.
There's a possibility of that, or there's a possibility that they just want to continue making money. They, you know, any company that's going to have a viable, have viable income, have viable revenue, are going to be able to pay their shareholders throughout this crisis,
right,
where everything is frozen and stagnant. It's going to be leaps and bounds ahead of most of the other companies in the industry.
Right.
So I mean, look, if they got to take a hit on perhaps making $1 billion versus making $0,
right,
or versus releasing it on home media, you know, and making that abbreviated or stagnated revenue from that, you know, then yeah, just try out streaming. We'll see. I mean, there's a lot of resistance towards it, you know, because it will close down other industries. If it takes off, if in the next 3 or 4 months we start doing commercial streaming to the point where brand new movies are being released on streaming and it proves to be highly successful, it will destroy the cinema industry. It will destroy it.
It's amazing.
I mean, there will still be cinemas around as nostalgia pieces and for other reasons. They will repurpose themselves, but they won't be the kings of industry like they are now.
Okay. And you know what? Maybe that's... Look, I mean, one of the things that in my circles that we've been talking about is, you know, for example, I'll use my own analogy. I managed to organize my living room. Why? Because I happen to be home, and it's something I've been putting off for a long time. So, but I needed the impetus to actually go ahead and do that. So maybe that is, you know, maybe this is not a bad thing. I mean, it's a bad thing for theaters. It's a bad thing, but maybe they'll reinvent themselves as well. I mean, you have things like Alamo Drafthouse, where they make it a night out versus they make it an experience. The movie's not the experience. You know, baseball stadiums are starting to do that. Yankee Stadium is starting to do that. Yankee Stadium basically said, all right, you don't need a seat, because the game is not the attraction anymore. It's the experience of being in Yankee Stadium. $20, no seat. You can stand wherever you want. We have standing bars. They actually built more standing bars just because that's the response. So, you know, we look at things like an end of an era, and sometimes we get very sad, or at least I do, you know, and again, we'll kind of go into this segment 3 again, too. We talk about the comic book situation in comic book retail stores. But maybe it's just nostalgia that's we're kind of clinging to, you know? I mean, maybe that's...
I mean, it's a lot of things. It's nostalgia. It's a way of life for a lot of people. It's revenue for a lot of other people. It's a job. You know, I mean, there's a lot to be considered that's going to be lost if we change things like that. And then, you know, there's also the irreparable, in English, the irreparable alteration of how we see movies, you know? I mean, that might dramatically change to the point where it doesn't, it loses its place as high art in our societal, you know, mentality.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot to be considered about it. And we don't know what the outcome is going to be. We don't know what the result is.
I had a conversation with someone recently too, and they asked, you know, digital comics versus, and this applies to your movie theater and what you just said, right? Digital comics versus retail comics. He says, why would you want to be in stores? You can't make any money in stores. You can make money selling things digitally or in bulk, you know, but you know, and I go, you know, there's just a certain amount of cachet to being able to tell people you were in comic book stores, like your comic book was in there. And just like you said, like the idea of high art, right? There is something about being released in a theater in a grand fashion that does hold true. But again,
there's a whole generation of kids who came up wanting to own a comic book shop, wanting to be a retailer, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't just say, oh, you can't make any money on it, so, you know, take that dream and trash it and find another dream, you know? So, I mean, like, the trick of all things is, like, you know, what you want to do when you're growing up versus when I was growing up and going to day camp in upstate New York, we passed by a car dealership, and there was a Trans Am Firebird. Gold. It was a gold Firebird.
It's like a Hot Wheels car.
With the logo, with the Firebird logo on the hood.
Yeah.
And I'm like, when I grow up, I'm getting that car. Okay? I will have that car. Now, years go by, they don't make those cars anymore. You know, or those cars are so expensive that, you know, whatever salary I have, my tastes have changed. I don't know if I want that car anymore. I don't know if I'd look ridiculous in that car right now, you know? But
you would not.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Well, according to me, I would. So it doesn't matter. But I mean, that's what happens. You repurpose your dream. Now, you don't know what your dream is going to be like when you don't know what place your dream is going to be when you grow up and become old enough and smart enough and financially solvent enough to be able to pursue the dream, right? You don't know where the world is going to be. So that is the way the world works. If it's not financially viable to own a comic book shop, by the time you grow up to be old enough and rich enough to own a comic book shop, then you do have to repurpose your dream a little bit. Yeah. But if you grew up and you were financially solvent enough and you own a comic book shop and you were able to kind of make it work a little bit, there is something to be said about the loss of that, you know, of that dream, that having that dream taken away from you, or having the world change so much that you cannot pursue that dream anymore when you're in the middle of living that dream. Yeah, that is a substantial loss. That is tremendous. You know, that's like getting the Trans Am and crashing it into a school bus. You know, it's like, you know, that's the funny part, though, right? I had it in my hand and it was taken from me now. Right, you know, it's a very different experience. I know. Well, let's hope that despite yesterday's press conference, that this could extend into July. Hopefully by July it will be safe. Hopefully Comic-Con will be safe. That's another thing that's been on my mind. We kind of talked about that off air as well too. I'm hoping it's the end of July. I'm hoping that we will be able to do it. We will feel safe. We will be able to go in August and start resuming some sort of normalcy, and that includes going to movie theaters if they're still around when we do. All right, when we come back, we have happier, more vibrant things to talk about, and we have an awesome guest, Mr. Fabian Nicieza, co-creator of Deadpool, but also a former Batman writer. So who better to tackle the Joker versus matchup and a number of other awesome matchups in our March Movie Madness DC Films edition when we come up next.
Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast. Making his first official appearance on the Rogue Wave podcast is friend of the show, he's the co-creator of Deadpool, but we brought him in because he's a former Batman writer, Mr. Fabian Nicieza. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, guys. How's everybody?
We are staying healthy and sane, but I don't know what that even means anymore.
I don't know how healthy we're staying. You know, like the choice of food has gone way down. You know, but we're staying fed. We're staying alert.
Staying fed.
Speak for yourself. This is from the neck up here, thankfully.
Exactly.
I don't know how fit one can get when you are locked inside your house all day. But we are a distraction for people. We hope to be a distraction for people. We talked some sad movie cancellations and movie postponements in the first segment, with Wonder Woman being moved, Morbius being moved to next year, and Ghostbusters next year, and wondering whether Comic-Con is even going to happen, where it's going to be safe to even walk outside. Negative. We did not bring you on, Fabian, to talk negative. We talked
because everyone knows how not negative I
am. So we brought you on for the positive. This is kid in the candy store kind of thing. We do it every year. It's our March Movie Madness. This year was our DC films, for anybody who did not catch last week. But why wouldn't you catch last week's show? You can download it on iTunes. We were up there. You can go into Spreaker and Stitcher and all these fun places and get our archives.
TikTok.
Oh, see, Hassan has this like fear of paying bills, and
I don't care about paying the bills.
And does not
I just don't.
He hates promotion. He's always
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm above it all.
He's all about
just the glasses alone should be enough.
Exactly. I don't know why. I don't know why it's a problem. But okay, go ahead.
Subscribe to our channels and our podcast. But anyway, last week we pitted 16 DC films against each other, March Madness style. Yes, it is April 1st. Happy April Fool's Day to everyone. But time has no meaning, so we are spilling into April with this. And
time has a plenty meaning because you're killing it.
We broke it down to our Elite 8 and the matchups, the current matchups in the Earth 148 bracket. Superman 1 versus Aquaman. In the Earth 149 bracket, Tim Burton's Batman versus V for Vendetta. In the Earth 159 bracket, Wonder Woman takes on Superman 2. And in the Earth 154 bracket, the main event, really, which I'm actually happy it's not in the finals because I don't want it to be in the finals. I wanted kind of socially engineered this a little bit. Dark Knight versus the Joker in our Earth 154 bracket. I think... now, first of all, Fabian, you were telling us you were surprised that Adam West's Batman did not beat Tim Burton's Batman. What?
I think it's a matter of your age, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm.
If you are of age, you understand the sheer brilliance that was the Batman TV show and the movie, quite frankly. And to think that anything in that Burton movie, anything in it, which it wasn't an awful movie by any means. I'm a critic of a lot of Burton stuff. I'm not a big fan of his, but the Batman movie wasn't awful. Nothing in that movie comes close to topping Batman running with a bomb along the docks and not baby ducks. So the minute you understand and accept that as a truth, then you understand why there is no way that the Burton Batman can beat Batman.
Sometimes you just can't get rid of a bomb.
Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you can't. Tell that to Zack Snyder.
Well,
hot take.
Unfortunately, well, not unfortunately. Look. As I said last week, I grew up on the Batman TV series as well. I was a 7-year-old making Lego Batarangs, out of Legos, just because it was so great, and doing Biffs and Bams.
I have many such memories myself that I won't share.
Yeah, he refuses to share. And apparently he has no idea who the monkeys are. That's what we determined from last week's show.
I didn't say I didn't know who the monkeys are. I said I didn't watch the monkeys. There's a big difference. I know exactly who the monkeys are.
You go listen to the transcript.
Get it right. Get back to your spiel. Get back to your spiel.
Tim Burton's Batman did indeed move on. The only true upset from last week was V for Vendetta pulling in a play-in game win over both Batman Forever and Shazam. And now it's facing off against Tim Burton's Batman. And from the sound of it, I actually figured, Fabian, that you would be on the side of Tim Burton Batman, and V for Vendetta would have a tough time moving past. But maybe I'm wrong.
You may be wrong. I think V for Vendetta, for what it was trying to adapt, was solid enough in what it did. I don't think it was by any means a great movie, but I don't think many of the movies on your chart are great movies.
We weren't really working with a lot of material here.
I was disappointed in Batman when I originally saw it, for the simple reason that it was such a muted version of what the character could or should be on screen. And part of that is because Tim Burton has no clue whatsoever how to direct action and how to direct movement on screen. He's really good at quirky set pieces and quirky interactions and exchanges. So the strengths of that movie were the quieter stuff, or the character interactions, than it was anything Batman did. And I'm trying to remember whether the character in V for Vendetta was able to move his neck or not. If he was capable of moving his neck, then that probably gives them the edge.
So here's the thing that I liked about Tim Burton's Batman. Obviously, it's not just, it's again kind of going back to your original point of like when you grew up. It was the first like big movie. I was 10 years old when it came out. It was an event and it was awesome. What I loved about it, though, and I continue to love about it, is it took some of the campier elements from the Batman TV show and kind of did it in a way that wasn't campy. Like his Joker, there's an homage to Cesar Romero. There's an homage there. There's an element to what Jack Nicholson's Joker does, to where it kind of incorporates the silliness, but it kind of ups the level of it. So I never really had a problem with it. I get what you're saying with the action, but I would think 1989, you have to forgive in a way, because modern action is a lot of CGI now too, and things that we're able to do now. I thought he pulled it off.
Do we have to? No, we don't really have to.
No, we don't have to. But this is my take. So yeah, that's why I kind of do that. My biggest issue.
Jackie Chan might quibble with you regarding the ability to shoot action on screen in 1989.
But he wasn't wearing a giant bat suit. My issue with V for Vendetta, and I mentioned it last week, is it is a faithful adaptation, except they changed the most pivotal part and they turned it into a love story versus a father-daughter story, which is
that's valid. I haven't seen the movie since about a year after it came out. I think I watched it on cable one time after it came out, and that's it. So I haven't seen it in a long, long time.
It's one of my favorite graphic novels, and the Wachowski sisters did such an amazing job up until the very point where they kind of gave in. I feel like, if I read this correctly, the studios are like, well, we're going to release it around Valentine's Day. We want it to be a couples movie, so can you tweak that part? And that was a concession. I don't know if any of that is accurate, but I do know that they did make a concession and make it a romance just for the sake of trying to bring in a female audience. And I'm sitting there going, you ruined the whole. To me, it was an unforgivable change. Watchmen, he changes it at the end from the Squid Monster to Dr. Manhattan. Makes total sense to me.
That's an understandable change.
Makes total sense.
I get the studio's notes though, because nothing says date night like Alan Moore and David Lloyd.
Nothing says like a Guy Fawkes mask, and Natalie Portman, right?
So candlelight. There was a lot of candlelight in the movie, wasn't there?
Yeah. I guess it was very romantic when you really boil it down. When he was shaving her head, and
by Victorian era standards, it was super romantic.
And torturing her in a jail cell.
I don't know what you guys are talking about. I mean, that's pretty much how any of my Thursday and Friday nights go.
That's go check out Hassan's Tinder profile.
I don't appreciate the critique. I really don't. I don't appreciate it.
So I gotta move Batman ahead. Hassan, we got a V and we got a Batman. What do you think?
V for Vendetta versus Batman. Tim Burton's Batman.
Yeah.
Didn't we do this? Didn't I have a take on it?
No,
I had a take on it.
No, we did Batman Forever versus V for Vendetta.
Yes, okay.
Which you hated, and I just gleefully enjoyed Batman Forever.
Well, yeah, of course you did.
I want to. Am I allowed to call upset and get Batman 66 back into this?
I forgot the most important thing. Each of us do have one upset that we can trigger at any point. However, for the existing matchups.
All right.
That would just throw everything out.
Rules are rules, I guess.
Well, then you'd be doing Batman 1966 versus V for Vendetta. You'd push 66
I severely like V for Vendetta over Batman, over Tim Burton's Batman, personally. However, Batman has a more commanding place in my heart than V for Vendetta, so I would advance Batman over V for Vendetta.
I get it. I agree. I understand.
All right. Batman.
It's just my anti-Burton vote, no matter what.
Batman advances to the final four. All right, we're going to go across the bracket, and we're going to hit up. This was a comical matchup because you laughed at it when I posted on Facebook. But I'm gonna fight for the underdog.
Was it all gonna be this easy?
I'm gonna fight for the underdog a little bit on this one, but probably will be this easy.
I think that's incredibly noble of you, Mike.
Superman 1 versus Aquaman. Now, first of all, Aquaman had a tough challenge to begin with because it went up against Red. Red is one of my favorite. It's one of the most enjoyable movies. Just popcorn action movies. Bruce Willis, Morgan Freeman, based off the Wildstorm comic. But Hassan actually changed my mind midstream, and Aquaman was an underdog, even though it was a 2 seed, and it triumphed. This one's a little tougher. Hassan, I know you're impartial to Superman 1, but you fought for Aquaman, so. What's your take on this matchup?
Superman 1 versus Aquaman.
Yes. What's your take on this particular matchup?
Unfortunately, Superman 1 versus Aquaman is pretty much the same situation as Batman versus V for Vendetta. Whereas, no. Actually, that's wrong. Superman 1 is a better movie than Aquaman. I like Aquaman. I appreciate the struggle that Aquaman went through. I like Jason Momoa tremendously, and I'm happy for him. And so since he's the premier of a $1 billion franchise now, he doesn't need my vote. The Richard Donner Superman is a genuinely superior film to Aquaman, in my opinion. It is the father of all cinematic comic book movies, as far as I'm concerned. It's dated in the visuals, but personally, it is unsurpassed as a genuine cinematic experience. That is not a cliche. It is not a pandering kind of situation. It is genuine. It is a genuine cinematic experience, to repeat myself. And
I agree with Hassan 100%. And I'll add the caveat that you can't. I don't think it's appropriate to judge the visual standards of what is being done today to what was done 30 years ago.
But hang on.
No. Wait. Just to clarify, I'm not even talking about the special effects. I'm just talking about the fashion.
That's not fair.
I mean,
that's the fashion your parents were wearing, and
he ran into a pimp with feathers in his cap.
Which will return in 10 years. Look, in 10 years, there will be pimp with feathers in their cap. I mean, it's invariable. Look, women are wearing mom jeans. People, this is Kelly Kapowski, 1991, and it's 2020, and they're back. So fashion, no, I disregard fashion.
Hassan, I watched The Deuce on HBO. Everybody was wearing boas in their hats.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
In fact, the world would be a better place if there were more feathers.
I actually used to walk around Port Authority in Times Square when I was a kid because my parents would go into Manhattan every weekend, and we'd all go in as a family. So I was like 10 years old, 11 years old. That whole area was exactly what they're showing.
Everybody's like, woo!
This is what I want to actually.
People in blue suits.
This is what I want to fight for. No, it's totally fine. This is what I want to fight for Aquaman in this regard. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to say it should advance over Superman, but you make the argument. Of course, the special effects are light years different for what we can do now versus what we can do back then. However, the argument.
That wasn't my argument, but yeah, okay.
Well, it was Fabian had kind of brought that up.
No, he said that doesn't count.
Well, he says it, but I say it actually does because I think what Aquaman did was actually a little more, I don't want to say more difficult, but challenging in its own right to create something that we haven't seen in the midst of all these movies where we've seen, the most amazing, stunning visuals. They managed to create a brand new world, I feel like, using the visual effects, and I think that's actually like something in its favor.
Superman was just as groundbreaking in its time.
Yeah, it
you
was.
know?
Mike, I hate to do this, but I think I get your argument, and I do respect what they did. I thought the production values, as far as the building of the visual story world, was the strongest aspect of Aquaman. But having said that, I'll put your argument to an end, I think, pretty easily. The entire marketing campaign for Superman was "You will believe a man can fly."
Yeah.
The entire marketing campaign for Aquaman was not "You will believe a man can swim."
Maybe it should have been.
Yeah. And you believed a man could fly when in 1976, or when we watched that movie for the first time, because that was the most important part of why people were going to see that, you know?
Yeah.
So within the context of its time, anything they did in Superman was quite frankly twice as revolutionary as what they did in Aquaman, and that's giving credit to Aquaman, because I do think that the visualization of what they were showing us was absolutely the best aspect of the movie.
Yeah,
for me.
I tried. I still vote for Superman 2, so Superman as well. So it wasn't. I just want to give him a little love.
I hear you. That's good. You were able to get me to say positive things about Aquaman. I gave at best a C+, and the plus was for the visual stuff, and because Momoa, although I think he's really, really awful for the part, is really a likable actor. You know.
Yeah, we agree.
Fair enough.
All right. Moving on to our third matchup, Wonder Woman versus Superman 2.
This is tough.
Now, let me tell you, here's the thing. Hassan is not a fan of Superman 2. He likes it, don't get me wrong. But I actually like Superman 2 way better than Superman 1. I think Superman 2, to me, stands out in my head more, despite all the crazy wackiness that does kind of happen toward the end, or because of. Where do you stand on both these films, Fabian, and is this you said it's kind of tough, so what do you think about
tough one? I used to like Superman 2 more than Superman 1. In the last 10 years or so, 15 years, I've altered that, because I used to like Superman 2 more because it was so much more comfortable in its own skin after the first movie, and it was a lot of fun, and then once again they put stuff on screen that we hadn't seen before at that time, although by today's standards, of course, it's really hokey.
Sure.
But the flaws in Superman 2 start to crumble over the course of time. It doesn't bear the weight of its mistakes in the same way. Having said that, I really enjoyed Wonder Woman up until about the 70% mark. Yeah. And then it turned into a bad Zack Snyder video game.
Like a video game, I mean, it wasn't even like
stupidity fest.
Yeah.
So that really soured me leaving Wonder Woman when I saw it in the theater. But the more I've seen Wonder Woman since, and I've probably seen it 3 or 4 more times, the good in that movie for me outweighs the bad. So with Superman 2 now, over the course of time, the bad has outweighed the good. So I got to be honest, as much as Kevin McGuire, my friend, may hit me, I probably would lean towards Wonder Woman over Superman 2, because in many ways Wonder Woman was a more important movie, and mattered more to more people who needed it to matter to them, mainly to young girls, women, everything else, that I'd lean toward Wonder Woman.
It's interesting. I think all three of us share the same kind of opinion about Wonder Woman, and it's funny because Hassan and I were in a band, and one of our band mates at one point was like, his famous saying was, you can mess up the song as much as you want, but if you nail the ending, then no one remembers that. They only remember the way you end the song, and Wonder Woman had that kind of issue. For me, I actually didn't have it. It's funny because Hassan actually brought this up, and it's one of these things that I don't really remember having issue with until he brought it up last week, and I'm like, oh yeah, Superman does kind of kill those people, doesn't he? That is kind of anti-Superman. Although I don't
think he killed them. See, that's the thing.
I don't think he did either.
I don't think he killed them. This was a lighthearted comic book movie, so he's not killing those people. He's banishing them. It's how villains have been disposed of in pulps and comics forever, you know?
Yeah.
Dr. Octopus didn't die in an atom bomb explosion, you know? But if you had only seen the atom bomb explosion, you would have thought he definitely died.
Right.
But, you know, 2 years later, we find out, no, his tentacles absorbed the radiation. So, you know, to me, anybody who argues that Superman killed in that movie, and many of the people who are making that argument are Snyderites. I find it kind of silly, because within the context of the time that movie was being made and the tone of the movie overall, he's not killing anyone.
Yeah. No,
I disagree.
Yeah.
I disagree.
You think
Snyderite?
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. I'll wear it. I think I agree with you that probably they made a better Superman 3, which we will not go into at all.
Yeah,
in context.
That's
I think if they made a better Superman 3 and they brought back Terrence Stamp and the crew, then you would explain it that way, and so that would exonerate whatever he did in Superman 2 to supposedly banish them. But the problem is, there's no way he knew that they were going to survive it.
I don't know that, because again, that's a presumption on your part, because you want to side you want to lean to the side that says he killed them. So I'm leaning to the side that says he didn't kill them, because he doesn't kill, and they didn't die because he knew they weren't going to die, and they did. So it's a very easy counter argument to make.
Fabian, explain to me the cellophane S.
And that's another great Snyderite maneuver. That's like the Trump Snyder shuffle. I address one thing you say, and then you sidestep it, because I made a very logical point, and you sidestep it, and I cannot explain the cellophane S. It's stupid. But the cellophane S has absolutely nothing to do with the conversation.
It doesn't. What's worse?
It doesn't. It was a technique of changing the subject while staying on good terms.
But Hassan,
by changing the subject?
We could never not be on good terms.
What's stupider though? What's stupider, the cellophane S or the video game like ending to Wonder Woman?
In the context of what Fabian said about the 70% mark, right? Which I actually absolutely agree with pertaining to that movie, and it does kind of fall apart there. The difference from our perspective, even though I 100% agree, is by the 70%, they've already got me. So if they want to cartoon out the ending, I'm like, okay, this sucks, but the experience was good enough for 70% of my time that I'll let it go over the finish line. So I absolutely do not disagree that the movie falls apart. I don't exonerate it because it fell apart. If we're just talking about a personal preference, I'm okay with it because it gave me 70% worth of entertainment up to that point. But
but Superman 2 is almost the reverse, because the third act was weak and had so many flaws in it. Then you leave the theater feeling frustrated, by what it did. It's not selling you enough though. So whatever happened beforehand isn't selling you enough the way Wonder Woman did.
Yeah, and
again, that perspective is an older person's perspective. When I was a kid, I ate it with a giant spoon. I thought it was the greatest thing I've ever seen. But as I get older, and it has nothing to do with whether he killed them or not. That was just a kind of a gag between Dolce and I. It's nothing to do with that. What you're saying about the flaws in the film in general is kind of my same perspective on it, and I don't defend Snyder because I did not like Man of Steel or Batman versus Superman. So,
but you love Sucker Punch. You love Sucker Punch.
I love Sucker Punch, but I'm not a Snyderite. I reject that. But
I think Hassan and I are both voting for Wonder Woman. It sounds like
yes.
So then the question is it unanimous?
It is, and it's not an upset here either. I will not upset Superman 2 ahead of Wonder Woman. I will say the context of Wonder Woman counts, though, around the movie, which is actually something Hassan always argues against, that we should care about this kind of stuff. But Wonder Woman was also the first modern DC film post Christopher Nolan that didn't suck, and so. It wasn't great by any standards, but it was like, wow, that was so much better than the last 3 movies we saw from DC. So, hey, that 70% is like 140% just based off of that.
And I also weigh social the social aspects of a movie and its release, and try to look at that in perspective as well. And I think that there's a tremendous
that
amount
has no
of
bearing on this.
importance to Wonder Woman's success. I'm sorry, but seeing like 8-year-old girls dressing up as Wonder Woman to go to the movie, I think is phenomenally important and says a lot about a movie's impact. Which in many ways says a lot about a movie. So I have to give some of that to Wonder Woman. I mean, it's not going to make a difference if it's going up against Superman 1, but that's okay. I'm just saying that I do factor that in.
We're going to try to pull in a new mystery guest for next week, so that'll be their
that'll be
their battle to wage. Their battle to wage. But yes, all right. Wonder Woman goes in. So far we are chalk, all chalk here. We got all the 1 seeds moving forward. Wait, you voted for Batman, right, Hassan?
Yes, but
yes.
Hassan, it was 2-1.
Good.
Batman winning.
I had to remember that for a second. This is the world we live in right now, where time has no meaning, and I can't remember what just happened 15 minutes ago. We move on to our final.
It'll be the same 15 minutes tomorrow, Mike.
I know. We move on to our final matchup. This is the most intriguing one of the, at least in my opinion, of the entire second round. The Dark Knight, Heath Ledger's Joker, taking on Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, both Oscar winners. If it counts for anything, Joaquin Phoenix won the Best Actor versus Heath Ledger only winning Best Supporting Actor. Fabian, what is your take on... Actually, no, Hassan, let's start with you. Because I know you have very, very strong feelings toward The Dark Knight, and it's important for Fabian to understand where you're coming from here.
Dark Knight versus Joker. That's the contest, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I do not like The Dark Knight because I do not, even though I think it is a superior movie, I think it's a really brilliant film. I think it's a terrible Batman film in my own personal opinion because I think what's his name's Batman is atrocious. In my personal opinion. However, I have never
drugs. Where are the drugs?
Swear to me. I've never been shy about the fact that I think that Heath Ledger's Joker is absolutely brilliant, and in my opinion, it absolutely legitimizes that film from my perspective. Now, I think that Joaquin Phoenix portrayal is brilliant. I just think the movie in and of itself is a scam, and so. My opinion is I would advance The Dark Knight in spite of my legendary vitriol for that film. I would advance The Dark Knight over Joker personally.
Oh, wow, that's a stunner. Okay, Fabian.
Dark Knight over Joker in the same way that I would rather eat Taco Bell than a pile of dog shit. I mean, do you really want me to get into how much I loathed the Joker movie?
Really?
Actually, yes. I would like you to get into
that. Yeah, no, I would too. I'm curious about this.
I would have left the theater, which I have not left the movie, and I have no clue how long. Probably since I was a teenager. I would have left the theater at the 1 second mark of that movie if I did not want to abandon my friend Kevin McGuire, okay? Because we were seeing it together. From the second they put up the grainy 1970s version of the Warner logo is when I said this movie has lost me. Because it is pretending to be something it is not. It is pretending to be a 1970s movie. I saw all those movies, most of them when they originally came out in the theater, okay? So the thought that these posers were going to be recreating something of its time told me right off the bat that this movie was a complete fake. And it was a complete fake. It was nothing more than a pastiche of several brilliant movies which were brilliant because of their time when they were made. And it's nothing but a jigsaw puzzle that's put together by other people's pieces. So it is awful.
With a candy coat of having a comic book villain as the main MacGuffin, or as the main antagonist of the film, which the director even copped out after the film came out and said, he might not even be the Joker. I mean, nothing is genuine. Nothing is genuine in it. I have the exact same, without the art that Fabian just displayed in breaking it down. I have the exact same feelings about it. And I'll also say I was even frustrated that he won Best Actor for the movie.
Really?
I think Heath Ledger's performance was far superior to Joaquin Phoenix's. I mean, far superior, because he crafted something wholly unique around a previously established character that in many ways didn't violate or mitigate what other performers had done before. Okay, so he found a path that was wholly his own, but still respected intonations and inflections and tones that other actors had brought to the role. Okay, Joaquin Phoenix repeated the same tics, movements, verbal spasms repeatedly throughout the movie. And if you watch the movie again, which I'm never going to do, but I would be happy if you guys did, you will see that it is nothing more than a recycling of what he's already established in the part in the first act, and with possibly just a bit of an escalation as the character's madness gets a little more insane. But there was nothing to it that was, to me, original and unique, only because any originality he brought to it at the very beginning and then just kept repeating it. The Heath Ledger's Joker always had a moment of surprise, always had a moment where he caught you off guard. Whether it was a pause before saying something or a reaction to something someone else says, there was always something unique happening throughout the course of that whole movie. If I got to see frickin' Joaquin Phoenix dance one more time, I swear to God, I'm going to blow my brains out.
With that being said,
I think I'm going to vote for Dark Knight.
Now you guys have me at a mental crossroads here. I got to be honest with you, because this was going to be my upset special.
Pull the upset.
And
only because it'll lose so easily in the next round.
Well, see, now this is why I'm as the circus was the ringmaster here. I'm really curious to know. See, Hassan threw the monkey wrench in this whole thing, because actually I don't disagree with anything you guys said, but I know Hassan has vitriol for The Dark Knight. So I actually thought he might side on the side of the Joker. And that's why I thought this might play out a little bit different. It did not. So now I really want to know what's going to happen next week if The Dark Knight goes up against Tim Burton's Batman. And do I save the upset card for that? Or do I use it here? That's an
interesting one. Because all I can tell you guys, I won't be here next week, sadly. All I can tell you is Superman 1 is just sitting there, like, rubbing its hands together, happy as could be, no matter what choices you guys make. And the other thing I can say is I'm really, really glad that Captain America Winter Soldier wasn't a DC movie. Otherwise, Superman 1 might be in trouble.
Yeah, that's your favorite. All right, I will hold on to my upset card.
Oh boy!
Till the Final Four, and we will advance Dark Knight into the Final Four, and
hashtag winning.
That is our
Joker
Elite
losing.
Eight.
Joker
Final
losing means
Four.
me winning.
Yes, exactly.
And the other thing, guys, as we look at this, just real quick, I want to just comment. What it really did for me through the course of this conversation is make me realize just how superior the average Marvel film has been, the average DC Warner film has been.
This was a tough one. This was not
an
easy.
Marvel movies have just been better made, better structured, better, more entertaining. Everything,
Yeah,
and their rewatchability has been.
And their rewatchability, is much, much stronger in many ways.
Sidebar before we go to break, we did our first ever one, I think, or our second March Madness, I forget which one it is. We did 90s comic book films. All right, so we pitted the best '90s, and it was it was slim pickings.
Mm-hmm.
90s comic book films, Crow, Ninja Turtles, you have Batman Returns, Batman Forever. Might have been an easier bracket than finding films in the DC world when all was said and done.
I'm surprised. Why isn't Man of Steel? Was Man of Steel
Didn't
not
make
even on your list?
Didn't make the
Justice League and Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman didn't even make your list. They didn't even the NCAA didn't even pick them for the tournament.
Correct.
That in and of itself, guys, is a damning indictment of the Warner DC films.
We had our selection show.
Your most recent and biggest movies with your biggest characters can't even make your tournament bracket.
Man of Steel was a bubble team for sure.
Yeah, I could see that, and I did not like the movie, but I could see it being a bubble.
It was a bubble. And unfortunately, the bubble burst.
What you might be able to do is do the same bracket, guys, with the worst movies, and then argue about the worst movies.
Hey, I am always looking for suggestions for the March Movie Madness for next year. So maybe that's exactly what we do. Fabian, as always, it's a pleasure. This is your first appearance in the Rogue Wave podcast, which is exciting for us.
Thank you, guys. Congratulations too on the new podcast. I think it's great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right. When we come back, I keep saying when we come up. When we come back, the future of comics, did coronavirus just change everything? When we come back. Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast. I want to thank our guest, Fabian Nicieza. This is his first appearance as a Rogue Wave guest, so that was pretty cool. But he's been on our old podcast numerous times, so he will return. He is an amazing guest, and we thank him for his time and his somewhat diligent answers to our March Movie Madness questions. We do this every week. We talk about the comic books that make up all the movies and TV shows that you love, and boy, oh boy, is there a lot going on. We call this segment Spinning the Racks.
Spin the rack, spin that rack.
The publishers respond to a comic book industry that is at its core being challenged. First, I want to thank fans of the show, David Rosenberg and Mike O'Neill, for kind of tuning me into this article. This is a Polygon article. Coronavirus measures are challenging the very core of the comic book industry. Kind of goes into detail about last week's announcement that Diamond was going to actually cease distributing comics for a while. Some retailers were actually happy with that, only because what are they going to do if they can't either A, be open, or B, customers aren't going to come in, they're going to be stuck with product. On March 18th, so this article from Polygon actually kind of summarizes pretty good. March 18th, Image Comics became the first publisher to publicly respond to the mandatory shutdowns many stores faced. They assured retailers all products would be returned within 60 days. And canceled all non-essential releases, such as second printings and reprints. Vault Comics, Boom Studios, Archie, Aftershock. Many small publishers were glad to offer retailers 60 to 90-day returns on all new stock, while publisher TKO offered to match 50% of any order sent to retailers. And then finally, March 20th, Marvel stepped up to offer deep discounts. But not returns, leaving many retailers disappointed, according to this article. March 28th, DC finally announced it would offer returnability on all its print books released between March 18th and June 24th. And this was kind of the big news we had talked about, kind of between ourselves throughout the week. The company would look into alternate distribution models as well. I want to talk about that in a second, but just to kind of bring it all full circle, it originally said DC said they would not pause digital releases, but then they did announce they're going to pause digital releases And yesterday, actually, Marvel Comics announced it would not release any new digital titles on Wednesday, April 1st. The company has not offered returnability still. However, Comixology, we don't know what's going on with them because they are a digital comic book company. But first, what's your reaction to the move of alternate publisher, alternate distribution that DC is looking into? I mean, is this actually a good thing for comics, right?
How can it be a bad thing? I mean, you can't have one company monopolizing the mobilization of the entire industry.
Yeah.
So that when they start running low or their sales start running low, they can actually cripple the entire industry. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It's nonsense. So again, just like we were talking about the home video phenomenon or whatever, this is this will be an opportunity to put a lot of hypothetical business models to the test.
Right.
Can we survive without Diamond? Can we survive without movie theaters? Without cinemas? And what will the change look like? Will it be something we can live with? So I think the fact that they're willing to experiment, the fact that they're willing to try to work and keep the retailers involved in the grand scheme of comic book distribution.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea instead of just 100% abandoning the retailers to go full digital. Although they should really go full digital, as well as sell tangible copies, as well as find other means.
But that's the problem, right? And this is what they kind of say in the article, though, that even though print publishing remains the primary way American comics are consumed, many retailers fear their customers will just jump ship to digital. And that's why
that's the market. I mean, the market is the market. You can't. I mean,
I know.
You don't want to put someone.
Well, that's like organizing the living room, right? I mean,
you don't want to put someone out of business deliberately. But I mean, if the technology comes along, it streams along, and ends up putting a prior way of doing business out of business out of commission.
Yeah,
that's the market. That's the circumstances that the market will bear.
Yeah.
So you can't. I mean, that's very different than just deciding, well, we're not going to do this anymore because it's not going to work for us, so everybody else is screwed.
Yeah.
That's a completely different way of operating, because in the way that they're proposing to do it, in the way of finding an alternative to print media and also doing full digital, there are innovators out there. There are retailer innovators out there who will be able to make both work for them. They'll find a way to innovate to make it work for them. And then the ones who don't know how to change, don't know how to innovate, will be the ones that go extinct.
I just don't know. I don't know how I've thought about this. I've thought about this. I really have. And I think the only way to really still have a comic book store going forward is to actually not be a comic book store, is to really be a, selling coffee and selling tea and selling alcohol and food and comics become part of it.
Extrapolating that from all the knowledge that you already have.
Sure.
You're extrapolating that from what you already know, but we don't know what we don't know yet.
Right.
We don't know what ideas someone's going to come up with that's going to make a retail establishment, a retail organization viable in a digital world. So, I mean, yes, ultimately you're right, and some people will resort to that. But I'm sure there's an alternative where both can be possible, and someone's going to innovate that, and that'll change the industry again,
I mean, the only other option you have is, in a way, what vinyl is to the music industry, right? Because we actually have a template for all this stuff, and comic book retailers have kind of been fighting it, and the publishers have kind of gone along with it as well. I mean, all it takes is Marvel and DC to say, we need to make money, so we're going to release digital. That's all it takes, and then this is over. All right. I mean, this is essentially over. But at the same time, it's tough. It's this nostalgia. It's we're holding on to our dreams, like that kind of thing. We're holding on to our childhood. We're holding on to the things that we loved. But the things that we loved are not necessarily what the new generation loves. And the means of receiving this at its core is definitely being shaken. very, very fascinating to see how this impacts everything. I mean, I mean, really amazing if you think about it, and not just comic books, but everything. You know, how this has impacted our life, and you know, is it something that we're going to simply be able to rebound from? I don't know. I really don't know. All right, this is our take. We hope you enjoyed our show tonight. Next week, we will finish off our DC March Movie Madness into April, because why the heck not? Time has no meaning these days. We will also discuss some more coronavirus impacted things, and maybe we'll throw in a review or two of some stuff that has recently hit Netflix and VOD. We will see you guys next week.
Rogue Wave.